We have 52 square blocks, we have residents, and we have businesses side by side. You know, we are the last real Italian neighborhood in the whole United States.
Taylor Taglianetti here from the National Organization of Italian Americans in Film and Television, and I am with director Joey Puleo of America's Last Little Italy, The Hill. How are you doing today, Joey?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
So happy we finally connected. I have literally been hearing about your film probably for like maybe the last year or so. I have these like Google alerts for anything Italian American film related. And I have to tell you, every single time I get a notification, your film pops up.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, so it's great. It's great. So let me ask you, because I've seen you've been doing so many interviews and I read so much literature surrounding the film. Um, you've described it as sort of this, opportunity to put your two passions together. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your Italian American experience and your filmmaking career thus far?
So I went to Lindenwood University, and that was where I went to film school here in Missouri. It's in St. Charles, which is where I grew up, about 30 minutes outside of St. Louis, where the Hill is located. So I went there, and really that's where I was able to get behind the camera and do what I love in filmmaking. And in terms of the Italian American experience, I had multiple family members that lived on the Hill and still do. And so I was always visiting the Hill, but I didn't really know the extent of the history of the neighborhood. Here in St. Louis, generally, when you're talking about the Hill, almost 99% of the time, everyone is talking about the Italian restaurants. And so I went into this project. Our executive producer, Rio Vitale, reached out to me to see if I had any interest. And so when I went into this project, really that was all I knew. It wasn't until Rio gave me two books to read quickly, because we actually started interviewing 5 days after this initial meeting that myself and Rio and our co-producer Steve Kokuris had. So I read these books quickly and was pretty much just shocked at the deep historic roots that this neighborhood has. And we started interviewing as many elderly residents as humanly possible. We interviewed probably 25 to 30 Hill residents that were over the age of 80. And so that's when the film started really to take shape.
For me, what I really loved about the film is that the whole theme that kind of permeates it is this idea of preservation. Like everyone wants to preserve this town, this community, and you're kind of taking that a step further by documenting it in a visual form. So I'm wondering, did you feel like any sort of like a personal responsibility, especially since you mentioned that there's so many like older people that you were interviewing, and at the end of the film we see a lot of them even passed away by the time the film was released. So what was sort of, that you have something in you that you really felt like you really had to do this?
To me, as a filmmaker, I couldn't think of a better way possible of preserving this history than through a documentary and getting these interviews while we had that opportunity. And so, just this entire process, I did have a deep connection, obviously, to wanting to preserve it. And then the fact that when it got time to start looking for 8mm footage, my family came to me, my aunt, I called my aunt, and because she was the one that we were told had the footage. And she kept saying, Joey, I don't think we have it. I don't know where it is. They had it converted to VHS. I was like, the quality's not high enough. We need to find these actual reels. And so she was looking, and I was over at her house, and I watched it get unearthed from a closet. And then she lifted the top, and there was like 15 pristine reels. So I ran over to Rio's house, and he started doing the conversion. And that's where you see the Sunday dinner footage is my family, and a lot of the stuff outside. And so just being able to see, my grandpa passed away when I was 5, so I didn't really know him that well. And so just being able to see this footage of the family together, and stuff that I had never seen before was quite emotional. And just being able to know that now this footage is going to live on forever. And hopefully, what we've been told by a lot of Italian Americans is that, they want to pass this film down generation, showing, where we came from. So many people are just excited that a neighborhood like the Hill still exists that's been able to keep that ethnic identity. Whereas, a lot of these places where their family came from, whether it be Chicago or New York or places like that, their Little Italy neighborhood has gone under, or it's not the same. You're not seeing that, it's not all houses and Italian families living in it anymore. It's a commercial. It's been commercialized. There's not a Starbucks on the Hill. This is all, family-owned businesses.
Let's talk a little bit about the marketing of the film, which you mentioned before. I'm curious, because of the pandemic, what were your initial plans? How are you pivoting now? We have a lot of young filmmakers, so I'm sure they're extremely curious about, your whole process there. I'm curious too, because I think you're doing a fabulous job.
Thank you very much. So the initial plan, we had known that we wanted to do a festival run. And so myself and my co-producer, Stephen Rio, had to have a three-way phone call because of COVID, and kind of discuss how we were going to try and move forward with this. And, there was talks, should we hold off one more year, and try and see if we can do a legitimate festival run, one that wasn't going to be virtual, one that wasn't going to be streamed online. And, for us with this film, knowing what it was going to mean to this community and knowing what it was going to mean to these families, just didn't feel that it was right. I had taken my time on this film. It was a 2 year. It took exactly 2 years. And so, when you have 120, 130 years of history to go through, this was something that I knew could not be rushed. And this is something that, we took extremely seriously, the fact that what this was going to mean to this neighborhood. So knowing that, we knew we couldn't hold on to the film. And so we started with a limited festival run. We went to the St. Louis Filmmakers Showcase, where we were able to win a few awards there. And then it was selected to the International Festival. And in the mix, we had a few other festivals that we were able to get into. But generally, like with my short film that I had done before this, that had a 1.5 year long festival run for a short film. For this, we premiered the film in July, and then in November, we were able to do our PBS. We were able to premiere on PBS, and so that's about 4 or 5 months of a shortened festival season that we had to go through. And so for us, it really couldn't have worked out better to be able to transition directly from within the same week. We transitioned from the end of our festival run to premiering on PBS to then selling DVDs and putting the film on Amazon. It really worked out better than we could have even have planned. But definitely COVID has completely changed all of our plans, and every decision that we had to make was basically on the fly. And we've just been lucky that a lot of the decisions, have worked out in our favor.
Yeah, well, something I'm curious about, because I don't see this too often, but I love that you did it. You mentioned that you're selling a lot of DVDs. And people make fun of me when I buy DVDs. And even people who are extremely passionate about film, a lot of people I know are like so against any form of physical media. So tell me, like, are people in Missouri still into physical copies? Like, what is it about, just holding on to that?
We knew that people were going to want to own this film. And so we had discussions with our local PBS, who we were going to be premiering through and who was going to be selling the DVD. And the first thing they said was no Blu-ray. This is not that your target demo does not own a Blu-ray player. They still have DVDs. And so we knew, okay, well, we're going to do our DVDs. And then we were able to get into multiple, there's a grocery store here in St. Louis, a grocery store chain called Schnucks. And we were able to get into there. Now we have displays in, 20 of these stores, and people are going to the store and buying them. And You can't walk in a store on the hill, any Italian store on the hill, and not see our DVD. And so we've just been, completely blown away with how many people want to own this film on DVD.
How do you go into fundraising? Like, how did you figure that all out? Because DVDs is like something you probably have to think of like way in the beginning, like how are we going to make our money back? So I'm super curious about what went into that. It seemed relatively cheap, and also you had a lot of that B-roll from your own family, so that probably saved you a lot.
Well, the first thing that we knew was that myself and my co-producer Steve, we were going to work for free. So for the last 2 years, we knew we wanted ownership of the film, but that we were going to put in our time in order to make that on the back end. Because, like you said, the fact that it was 5 days between Rio pitching us the idea and us filming, the reason being was the fear that we were losing so many members of the community. And so we knew, okay, if we take a typical route to this, which would be an extensive pre-production, going out and trying to raise money in order to pay ourselves, in order to make this film, that, how many members of the community are we going to lose during that time? And also, what were people going to want to fund a film like this, a historical documentary about a neighborhood in St. Louis? So we said, let's take the risk ourselves. This is something that we're all passionate about. We all love this neighborhood. We all wanted to make this a reality. So what better way than us to just go out and start filming? So we owned our own cameras. We owned our own equipment, because myself and Steve have been doing some commercial work together since we graduated film school about 4 or 5 years ago. And so we had all our own equipment. The only thing that it was going to take us was time. And we were willing to put that time in. And so many times, with filmmakers, you're getting caught up in the fundraising aspect of everything. And you really become more of a fundraiser than a filmmaker. And for us, we said, we believed in this project wholeheartedly from the beginning, that we were going to be able to make something that people wanted to watch, and that, regardless of what we're able to make on the back end, the experience was going to be worth it for us regardless. And so the fact that now the film is able to bring in, funds and kind of pay us back for that time, and also pay our executive producer, Rio Vitale. Rio put up, like you said, there was some things that needed to be, when you're doing a film, there's always going to be a lot of miscellaneous costs. So, things like music licensing, things like stock footage that we had to get, paying, we did a little graphic design work for the DVD and stuff like that. And then, but there was always, we were always kind of taking it one step at a time. A project like this, just being really myself and Steve in terms of the actual making of the film. If 2 years ago I would have been concerned with, how am I going to pay for DVDs? How am I going to be able to distribute this? How am I going to be able to market this? It's kind of like a marathon. If you're just taking it 1 mile at a time and just you just keep climbing up that hill, every time that a decision comes to you, you just make that decision, and hopefully it's the right one, and you can be successful. But, we knew that this was going to be a long haul, and, we were just willing to take that chance to kind of immortalize this neighborhood that we love so much.
Well, it certainly paid off, Joey, and I can't wait for everyone to see it who hasn't seen it already. So why don't you tell us, how can we see it? We can purchase the DVD on Amazon. What's the deal?
So you can purchase the DVD directly through us on our Facebook page. We have a Facebook shop, so it's facebook.com/thehilldoc, or you can simply search America's Last Little Italy, The Hill on Facebook. And that's how you can get the DVD. We also have a hat, some other items. And then you could stream the film through Amazon Prime Video, either rent or purchase it. It's $4.99 to rent. It's $9.99 to purchase. And that's simply, you just go on Amazon and search America's Last Little Italy, The Hill. You can see it there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. So glad we got to connect, Joey.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.